Mint and Jaffa's orange grow. Microchips is us. iPhone cameras us. Taco salads us. Boba us. Olive Garden us. White Phosphor us. Sabra Hamas. Hasbara sus.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bad Hasbara.
This is the world's most moral podcast. It's the world's most... Sorry.
Was that in 7?
That was in 7. That was in
Wow.
a tight 7.4. I had to work
Beautiful.
on it to get
Yeah.
that scansion, you know.
But you did it. You scanned
Yeah,
it perfectly. My name is Matt Lieb. I will be your most moral co-host.
I'm Daniel Matte, the other one of those most moral co-hosts.
Absolutely. This is a very exciting episode. So we're not going to do the thing where we have an intro that's so long that people start getting nervous that we don't have a guest. Instead, we're going to go as fast as possible. So, of course, first, give us 5 stars in a review, and then press subscribe, and then tell your friends to do so as well.
Demand it.
Yes. And then second, shout out to producer Adam Levin on the ones and twos, hitting us with all the beautiful drops and chyrons. And today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, who's not really a sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Muslim Aid USA. Muslim Aid USA works to reduce the risk of flooding and contamination in the Al Nasser and Al Sattar neighborhoods in Gaza by improving community-level water infrastructure, installing wastewater pipelines, and increasing access to hygiene and sanitation, and creating temporary employment opportunities for locals. So please, if you have any money, and you want to give it to some people who are doing some good stuff in Gaza, please go to mausa.org and give them money.
But if you have any other money...
If you have any extra, if you have even more extra, please go to our Patreon, patreon.com/badhasbara. Once a week, you will be getting a bonus episode where we will either be doing a bonus live stream or just talking shit. Sometimes we have a great guest. Sometimes it's just us hanging out. So please do that. We have one that's going to be about a movie that we watched, a biopic about Golda Meir that we're finally going to talk about with my friend Vince Mancini. So please subscribe. Daniel, what are you spinning? What is the spin?
Well, you know, the spin started off kind of just boring and straight ahead. I mean, what the fuck are you going to do when you have Roger Waters on your podcast? What? You're not going to have Dark Side of the Moon spinning?
Yeah.
You're not going to have fucking, you know, animals?
Oh, yeah.
You know, The Wall isn't going to be featured? Come on. Then I thought, okay, let's branch out a little bit. Let's get, you know, and I thought, who's covered Pink Floyd? And the only Pink Floyd cover I could think of in my collection was this EP by Primus, Multiple Miscellaneous Debris, where they cover Have a Cigar.
Oh, I didn't know
Credited to
Primus.
Roger Waters.
Wow.
Great cover, actually. But then I thought, could I get any more creative than that? So I
Yeah.
present a few other spin-offs. Pink Droid.
I like it. I like it. Flaming Lips. Yeah.
Yoshimi battles the pink robots.
Yeah.
Pink Noid, as in Paranoid. Run the Jewels.
Run
3.
the Jewels.
4, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, Pink Freud.
Wow.
Very bad.
Wow.
Very, very bad.
Wow.
But Tori Amos under the pink. And just to finish things off, today, folks, I am Pink LaCroix.
Oh,
with
beautiful.
this watermelon flavored sparkling water drink, which we're not endorsing. It's just what I happen to have.
We don't know if they're bad or not. They could be bad.
They could be bad. We don't know what
We'll
list
find
they
out,
are or not on.
But for now, it's worth it for the pun
and the refreshment.
and the refreshment, at least on your end.
All right. That was embarrassing.
That was wonderful. That was the spin. And without further ado, we are going to introduce our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, we, often have mega superstars on this podcast, like mostly just friends of ours, but this is really exciting. This is a guest we've been trying to get for a while. Very excited that we were actually able to make this happen. Shout out to your brother, Daniel, for helping hook this up. What else can you say? This man needs no introduction. You know him, you love him, ladies and gentlemen, everyone else. Welcome. Roger Waters is here on Bad Hasbara. Wow. Hi.
Hi.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
How was
So-
that? How was that wait for you there, Roger?
Yeah, was that
It
too
was
long?
it was fucking great. I loved
Okay,
it.
good. Okay, good.
My
Hell
dog
yeah.
came and said hello, and she was here a moment. She'll come back and say hello.
Oh, we'd
sometime.
love to meet her.
I love
My
it.
missus came through. She's got in the car and driven away, so
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about.
Does your dog have a Brazilian name with a bunch of vowels?
Or is it like
My
Craig?
dog's name. No,
Mm.
my dog's name is. It's actually the name of a song. My dog's name is Sweet Georgia Brown.
Oh,
Wow.
Dun, 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 dun,
Hang
dun,
on.
dun, dun, ba-dum,
Yeah.
bum.
Bring the dog.
Georgia,
That's
come
the
here.
Harlem Globetrotters theme song.
Come on.
Oh, see, I didn't know that song had a name.
Here she
It
comes.
does, yeah.
Come on, up you come. Hey,
There
up.
we go.
Come on.
I love a surprise guest on this podcast.
Um,
Yeah, lift it.
Hey.
Oh, look at this. That's a
da,
good
da,
boy.
da. Hey, good
Look
what?
at-
What did you say?
I think you just
boy. How
misgendered
could you
Roger
be-
Waters'
if-
dog.
I'm
If
so
you were
sorry.
a boy, you wouldn't be called Sweet Georgia Brown, would
He'd
you?
be called Sweet George Brown.
Yeah, that was Sweet George Brown.
Hey, look, get in the middle. Wave.
Hi.
Hey.
Say
Can-
goodbye.
That's
Say-
a
Can you say free Palestine? All right.
She's gone.
Roger, we're very excited to have you on. We've had a lot of guests who have dealt with different levels of smears throughout their careers. You know, some people who are obviously earlier in their careers, comedians and such, who were scared to, come on, but felt like the need to, say something during a genocide, and of course got in trouble for it. People who have dealt with different levels of smear campaigns. You, my friend, have dealt with some of the, I think, most vicious attacks for so long that you're almost like the original fall guy for anti-Zionism. You have been maligned most of my life. Which,
and unlike us, you don't have the "oh, but I'm Jewish" thing to fall back on.
right?
as a
Exactly.
response.
Yeah.
No,
So, can you tell me?
as far as we know.
Yeah, exactly. You could. You never know. You just gotta check the old 23andMe. But can you tell me, like, the last 15 months have obviously been, or 16 months now, have obviously been incredibly devastating. Is there any part of you that during this time felt a little bit of optimism and that people were finally starting to understand what Zionism is and what Israel is?
Yeah, there's a small part of me, a small part of, the bit of my brain that thinks, that keeps thinking, surely they'll get it sooner or later. And that's happening right up until this second. Obviously, I see the pictures like we all do. And I was very struck by the pictures day before yesterday of them all walking home up the coast, going north, all leaving Rafah and walking up through central Gaza towards northern Gaza. So what? Except there's nothing up there, guys, except rubble. And there's still, what is Trump going to do? These are the questions that we're all asking ourselves every day. What's he going to do? If he remains faithful to Miriam Adelson and her several $1 million that she's given him over the last couple of elections and few years or whatever, he'll just declare greater. He actually, the last tiny video I made, which was a couple of days ago, I made in response to him saying, oh, what a mess Gaza is, and it's such great property, sea views and blah, blah. And so I did a little thing called The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and he is the ugly. And suggesting that his only interest, as you would expect from Donald Trump, is in the real estate. And his ghastly son-in-law, Jared Kushner, said nothing else but, why don't they just do the deal and we can sell apartments? It'll be fine. All we have to do is get rid of the Palestinians and everything will be fine. Or we can do a deal with them. Why don't they just accept threat and siege to fuck off?
Yeah.
And then everything will be fine. So there's that going on. As you can see, it doesn't take a great deal to raise the temperature of my blood and make me start dropping the F-bomb all over your program.
Oh, please do. That's all we do is say fuck.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Fuck,
Yeah,
fuck.
Yes.
And fuck them. You know,
Fuck
I
them.
see Daniel Fuchs, my painterly friend in London, he signs off every night by tweeting fuck Israel, and then every morning he signs back on fuck Israel. And I've sort of given up retweeting it because it's every day. But
Yeah.
but thank you, Daniel.
This just in. Fuck Israel. Still.
Exactly. So do I have a sense hope? Yeah, because you it's a bit like, how long can this go on? But maybe people were thinking that in 1935 and 36 and 37 and 38 and 39 in Europe about the Germans. How long
Sure.
well, it'll go on until they fucking destroyed the world, or we
Right.
call them to heal
Right.
into order.
Yeah.
Tell them that it was all a terrible mistake. Israel is over.
Yeah.
Because Zionism was a horrible, horrible white and religious supremacist disaster. And it's happened. But you have to stop, and you're all going to have to get into therapy if you're adult for the next 20 or 30 years. And if you haven't been born yet, for the next 50 or 60 years, to adapt yourself to the idea that what has meaning in life is to be a human and humane human being. And that is what brings joy to our lives, not being somebody who believes that they're so special that they can take whatever they want and they're allowed to kill everyone who's not one of their religion all over the world, if necessary, because God told them that that was the case. Well, what?
Yeah.
So do I hope that people will wake up to the idea that this is insane and say no? Well, the problem is that there's a thing called evangelical Christianity in the United States of America, where they believe exactly the same thing,
Right.
except they believe that all the Jews are going to die as well as the communists and the atheists.
But come on,
And
Roger. They love
the
us. Who cares
Catholic.
why they love us?
Yeah.
Who cares? Who cares if their end game is, eternal hellfire for us? In the meantime, it's very validating.
A friend is a friend, even if that friend wants you dead. That's what I've always said.
Okay, well, cool. I'm glad to hear your point of view.
No,
on this
you have to understand. After
liberated
2,000
podcast.
years, it just feels so good.
It feels good to have a friend, even if he wants to send me straight to hell.
So joking aside, much
Yeah.
as I know it would be nice to get through the next 10 minutes or however long I've got joking and doing nothing else, there is a serious side to this because, well, because of the children and all the grown-ups, not just the children, obviously, but because this is insane, and we know it is. But how do we? Well, we keep doing what we're doing, and that's all you can do. People so often say, I often say to people, "What can I do?" And they say, "Keep doing what you're fucking doing."
Yeah.
And just be glad that you have a platform and that you can use it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Sorry, go on.
No, I mean, I know that I've always been grateful for you in terms of, talking about someone who keep doing what you're doing. You have not ever been cowed by the smears, by the lobby. They've tried multiple times, to cancel your gigs. They've tried to get you, kicked out of countries, essentially. I mean, I know that they were trying to get you kicked out of Germany.
No, something worse.
Something
way, way worse than any of that. Jonathan Greenblatt, I hope you're watching, Jonathan, invited me to lunch one day.
Ugh, God, he was going to eat you? I can only assume.
No, you know what he was going to do? He was going to convince me to turncoat, to change side. And that he was going to promise me that they would stop attacking me and trying to destroy me and my career if two things. One, if I changed all my opinions, and 2, if I gave the ADL credit for having persuaded me.
When was this?
Wow.
When
Yeah,
would
when did that
Jonathan
happen? That must have
Greenblatt,
been
as
soon.
outlandishly, cartoonishly evil and idiotic as the guy is, when would he have plausibly thought that he had a chance in hell of swaying you, or any leverage with which to do so?
I'll tell you exactly when it was, because it was the summer when I was finishing the new Dark Side of the Moon Redux record, and when BMG, who were going to put it out, Bertelsmann Music Group, to translate for anybody who doesn't know about, anybody who hasn't got daft guitars on their wall, like some of us.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, and they were
owned by Roger Waters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
some of them turned round, so Jonathan Greenblatt wrote to Bertelsmann Music Group and said, you have to cut all your ties with Roger Waters, because we see that you're his publisher and that you're about to put a record out on your label for it. You can't do that, and you have to cut off all ties with him, or we're going to tell the world that you used to be the publishers for the Nazis in the 30s.
Wow.
So they went, oh, well, we're very sorry. We'll cut him off now. And they did.
Wow. Wow.
And a bit later, having achieved this, he said, perhaps you'd like to have lunch one day. Not to me, but to somebody that I know.
Yeah, it's a lovely
in
career
New
you
York.
got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like the mafia.
Isn't it lovely? I mean, isn't it amazing?
It's crazy because it's
What was your
yeah.
response? Sorry, Matt, but how did you respond?
I can't remember, but I'm sure
Did it
sure the
include
F-bomb.
the words "fuck off"?
It
Yeah.
definitely includes lots and lots of F-bomb. It was mainly loud, happy laughter. Going, what the fuck is wrong with these people? I'm happy to see that Jonathan Greenblatt's predecessor, who I knew well back in the day,
I can imagine. Abe Foxman.
Abe Foxman, exactly. You beat me to his name. Abe Foxman is now coming out and sort of condemning the genocide, which is interesting. I read something this morning. I don't want to misquote Abraham. You know what I'm like, how careful I am about biblical figures. And so
We are all the children of Abraham.
That's right. Abraham
exactly.
Foxman.
Yeah. So there we are. But anyway, let's not.
Well, I wonder if that has something to do with the fact he was so prominently featured in the film Israelism. And I was surprised that he allowed him to, he was so candid and relaxed with them.
You're right.
And he basically said he wasn't pounding the table and being like, he's like, yeah, this is what we do. We indoctrinate them.
Yeah.
And I wonder what effect that had on him.
There's a film I made years ago with Sean, and I think it's called Swaddled. I don't think we ever released it, but it's got a great beginning. It's of an old bloke typing, right? And it goes, I remember my mother one day saying to me, of course, darling, if the Germans had won the war, they'd have killed me because I'm a communist. He said, but you were so young at the time, they'd probably have kept you alive and brought you up as a good little Nazi. And it goes on to say, you know, if you get a child young enough, you can teach them absolutely anything you want. And then they're not equipped to reject anything. So it's very easy to brainwash young children. But I remember I said in the thing, scared the fucking shit out of me. Just imagine, because it could have happened so easily. Imagine when you're grown up like me and you were brought up by an atheistic, liberal, human rightsy kind of woman like my mother, the thought that you could have been brought up by the enemy and have believed that Hitler was right and you are so lucky to be living in the Third Reich that's going to last 1,000 years and all that.
Yeah, and the probability is you wouldn't have woken up out of it. Although, of course, that's never a certainty. We have people like Miko Peled, who comes from Israeli military royalty. We have, I have lots of people born in Israel, Jewish, in my life who have woken up out of it. I myself went to a Zionist summer camp. I had the privilege of having an anti-Zionist father, so I had a little inoculation. But yes, I mean, you're talking about you're talking about inculcation that goes very deep.
Make no mistake, because my mother was as left-wing as she was, many of my mother's closest friends with me growing up were Jewish people, were of the Jewish faith. Not that we ever inquired into anyone's faith, but I do always remember, I've told this story before, but I like it. My mother not often, but sometimes would take, sorry.
It's totally.
I'm just wondering whether to tell her. She won't stop. It doesn't matter. Let her bark. She would take us to political meetings, my brother and I, if the lodger was away or something, or if there was nobody to babysit. And we went to a meeting of the British-China Friendship Association one night in the Friends Meeting House in Cambridge, which is where I lived after the war with my mum. And when we left, I was probably 6 and my brother was probably 8. When we left, we're going home. And she said, I've been watching films of the Long March or afterwards when they were beginning to win the Revolutionary War. Mm-hmm. And she says, you know where we were tonight? No, Mum. She said, it's called the Friends Meeting House. And it belongs to the Quakers, who are religious. As you know, I am an atheist. They're very religious. They're a Christian sect, and they're blah, 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 blah. But I want you to remember this about the Quakers. They're very good people. Mm. And I never forgot that. She said, it doesn't matter who your God is or what you believe or what. The important thing is that you're good people and that you do good, that you behave properly and that you care. The Quakers care about their... Whether this still pertains or not, I don't know, but I suspect that it does. Because I tell you this, Jonathan Greenblatt, if I had a friend who was a Quaker, I would have no idea because I don't give a fuck what your religion is.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. No,
you can be a Buddhist, you can believe in Confucianism or consumerism. It makes no difference to me.
Never mind the fact that many of the Israeli war criminals that you so vociferously and rightly decry are complete atheists as well. In fact, they're heathens. I mean, they don't have a religious or spiritual bone in their body. They just cleave to religion as a sort of post facto cynical rationale for what they do. I'm curious to know, when did you first become aware of this issue as an issue of moral urgency and as something that it was going to require looking beneath the surface of Western consensus to understand the truth about? When did you, what was, different people have, we spoke to Deborah Winger, the Academy nominated actress, who spoke about in the 70s going there. Okay. But for those who don't, I'm not, of course you do. Of course you do. Yeah. You know everybody. But,
you're going to start telling me about Susan Sarandon.
The red-haired American. And she spoke about how, she went to Israel in the 70s as an idealistic youngster and wrote back to her grandmother back home in Cleveland, Grandma, this is not what they told us it was. When was your moment of cluing in that there's something very off here?
It was way, way after that. Strangely enough, I've written about this recently. It was 2006, I'm ashamed to say. So it was after the Second Intifada. I tell you what happened.
And prior to that, can you just let us know what was your view of it before that, and then how did it change?
Prior to that, I didn't have a view about it. I was busy collecting guitars and hanging them on the wall behind my head. No, I wasn't. I never, ever collected a guitar. I have never sunk to those depths. What was it?
Yeah, get his ass. Yes.
So no, I was busy, trying to figure out how to win the fucking football pools, and the only way I could, I knew I wasn't going to do that because I was good at maths or mathematics. So I knew the chances of me winning the lottery were too slim to set any store by. I'd have to figure out some other way of buying a sports car so I could pull those foreign girls, learning English at the school down the road from where I live. Because that was the path to it. That's you needed a few quid to be an undergraduate at Cambridge where I was growing up.
Sure.
And so blah blah blah. And at some point, I came to the conclusion I wasn't going to win the football pool. So rock and roll seemed like the only possible route that I could think of towards making a few quid. And obviously it was a stupid adolescent fantasy that somehow came true.
Yeah, I was gonna say, talking about gambling.
Worked out okay.
Yeah,
It worked out fine. Yeah, in the end. But that meant that I was through my teen. Well, no, I was political in my teens, but not somehow not. Because Claudette Kennedy, who had her Auschwitz number on her wrist, was a close family friend and blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't quite work out why she wouldn't let her kids go in the canoe with me. It was because she'd been in fucking Auschwitz for not umpteen years, but a number of. Why was she in Auschwitz for a number of years? Because she was a doctor. So she was spared because she was helping Mengele with his experiments. But after the war, oh my God. She married Mr. Kennedy, who then died, I think. But talk about worried about something happening to her kids. And it wasn't until I was older that I thought, well, of course she was. You never recover from that. Anyway, what am I saying? So in spite of all that, I never thought after I was 5 in 1948. So did I think, oh my God, the Nakba's happened? No, I didn't.
Right.
As I wrote recently that back in 1948 and in the 50s and all through the 50s, the story that was sold us and which I bought was, there are these sort of new socialist experiment going on somewhere in Palestine.
Yes.
And it's sort of kind of people who've come in, and that some of them may be related to the victims of the Holocaust in the war or whatever, but what they all live together. They're communists, really. They live in these socialist enclaves, and they all work together and look after one another in these places called kibbutzes, and it's all very left-wing and socialist, and it's a wonderful new revolution, and hard work, but good luck to them. But I sort of bought that vision,
right?
And I never thought about it really.
Well, the name of this podcast is Bad Hasbara. We call that that's good Hasbara. That was the era when there was actually a decent cover story that succeeded in covering up a lot.
I mean, people of your generation, Roger, including my parents, it is still to this day something they hold on to, this idea of Israel as actually kind of left wing. It's pro-gay. It's there are these kibbutzim where people are all around campfires, multicultural, and playing guitars, and not mentioning the armed guards, the IDF security forces that guard
and the Palestinian villages that lie in rubble underneath.
That brings me back to my story. Thank you, Daniel, for steering us.
We always bring you back, Roger.
So I spent all those years not learning to play the guitar, but dreaming the dream, and eventually somehow started a rock band in the middle 60s or whatever. But then I just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. And I'd started the band with two other guys from Cambridge, Sid Barrett and a guy called Rado Close, who were both from the school that I'd been to. I called Rado yesterday, okay? He's a year younger than me, so he's 80 now. And he answered his fucking phone. Well, actually, his wife answered his phone. They were sitting by the river in Blackheath eating chips. And thinking about this and that, I suppose, and talking. And I said,
Matt, that means fries.
Yeah.
If he was eating chips,
fries.
He'd be eating crisps.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just a little translation.
French fries or English fries.
English
in
fries.
This case. Anyway, so I said to him, Bob, because he was Bob in those days. I said, you came and lived in the flat that I was in Highgate, when you came up to London to go to the Poly, which he did a year after I started at the Poly. And he said, yeah, that's right. I said, why? I don't remember you from school, do I? How did we meet? What? And he said, I'm glad you asked me that. I'm not surprised you. He said, actually, I'm a bit surprised you. I said, well, come on. How would I know? You're a year below me. I don't speak to kids from the year below.
Yeah.
How did we meet? How did I know you played the fucking guitar? And he went, Second 11, cricket. What? We were both in the second 11 of the school cricket teams, 2 teams. We were in the. He said, you were the wicket keeper. And I interrupted him and said, and you were the first slip. So next door to what you would call the catcher, but we call the wicket keeper, you have 2 slip fielders who stand next to you, or 3 or however many, to catch anything that hits the edge of the bat.
And the second 11 is like the B team?
Yeah. So we were in the B team at cricket, and he was there. So inevitably, we talked to one another on the cricket pitch all the time.
Yeah.
So there was a bit more to that story. And then he said, and then we had a long conversation on a long bus ride we took. I said, what long bus ride? You used to go on a bus every day. I remember you lived out in the country in Cottisham or somewhere. And he said, no, not that bus. I said, well, what bus was I ever on with you? He said, well, it left Cambridge. And when I got on, I saw you already sitting on it, and I came and sat next to you. Well, where the hell was it going? It was going to the Atomic Energy Research Establishment in Aldermaston. Fuck me. The second Aldermaston March, 1961. So Rado Close and I both marched from Aldermaston to Trafalgar Square. 3 days it took that, with my first girlfriend, who was on that march as well, and a bunch of other people.
An anti-nuclear protest in 1961.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're early on every cause.
Well, I was actually the chairman of the youth CND movement in Cambridge, and I was chairman of the Cambridge Young Socialists when I was 15 years old.
Wow.
So my mother's left-wing politics seeped through. Don't forget, she would have been card-carrying Communist Party member until 56, when all the Communist Party members of good heart left in protest of the fact that the British CP refused to condemn the Russian invasion of Hungary in 1956.
Which was the same year my dad had to flee Budapest.
Oh, that's
My
right.
dad's family left
Isn't
in
that
the Hungarian Revolution. He woke up to the sound of Russian tanks one morning, and a few days later they were trudging through the mud to the border in the middle of the night.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think I've heard your father speak about that, but I'd forgotten that was in 56. Yeah. Wow. Anyway, there we are.
So that primed you.
So-
That primed you to be aware of causes
bit-
and
a
injustice
bit.
and being willing to stick your neck out. So then we fast forward to 2006, you say, when
2006.
something
I'll tell you.
shook you out
Invasion
of
of
your
Lebanon, or and then
We go
also
past,
the coup.
we go past 82 and 86 and all
Right.
those Marines dying in Lebanon and all of that. Well, that was 2003, I believe. But anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
2006, I'm plying my evil trade all over the world, trying to scrape together a lottery win. And we'd already won the lottery.
Yeah.
way before that.
A few
we won the
times.
lottery.
Yeah.
Dark Side of the Moon and then the wall and all of that. So,
Yeah.
but I'm still working like crazy. And I'm in the middle of a European tour in 2006. And there's a bit of a gap between Athens and Istanbul, like 3 days or something like that. So I get a call from the agent one day. And it goes, you've got a gap between Athens and Istanbul. Can we put in another gig, or do you want to sit on the beach and drink cheap white wine? Excuse me. So I said, let's put another gig in. So it came. We've got one. It's called Haken Park. It's in Tel Aviv. And I just went, what is it? It's a stadium. Oh, cool. Bye. And I never thought any more about it. Well, I did, because I had a laptop, and I started to get emails because they put it on sale and it sold out immediately. Like, I don't know how many people it holds, but
Yeah, and let's just
And I
pause here.
started-
Just having grown up around Israelis and around North American lefty hippie Zionists,
Yes.
boy, oh boy, do Israelis love Pink Floyd.
Yes.
Or
yes.
did they, at least when I was growing up? There was something about the trippy, philosophical,
Political, righteous, and
and
melodic and beautiful. I mean,
yeah,
it's
it really, really, really vibed there.
right.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I've forgotten the promoter's name. Schutz. I'll remember his name in a minute. Anyway, and then it sold out. So it hit the news papers and stuff. I started to get emails. They came from sort of Algeria and Morocco to start with. And then blah, blah, blah. And then now suddenly I had 100 emails all going, what are you thinking? And then I got the important email, which was from Omar Barghouti.
Oh, wow.
Because they'd started the BDS movement the year before.
Yeah.
And he'd already established that the BDS movement represented the whole of Palestinian civil society. So it had a very big voice. And so I called him up, and we had long conversations over the telephone. And he told me that Hyken Park was built on it's 5 different villages are underneath that fucking thing.
Yeah.
Including all their graves and whatever. And
Jesus,
so
I didn't know that. I might have seen Michael Jackson there in 1993.
Wow.
Yeah, you probably did. Yeah. So anyway, so I went, all right, you've persuaded this old pilgrim. I will cancel that show. And he went, thank you. But I said, I'm not totally convinced that there's only one way, which is BDS to the end of the thing. So I did some research, and I discovered Wahat Asalam, also known as Neve Shalom, the oasis of peace, about halfway between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, an ecumenical agricultural community, all the children going to the same school. So you've got Druze and Muslims and atheists and Christians. All
our former
blah,
guest,
blah, blah.
Noam Schuster-Eliassi, grew up there and spoke about it. And she talked about how she's an anti-Zionist Israeli of Persian descent as well. And she's a comedian. She says her phone often autocorrects Neve Shalom to Never Shalom.
Never Shalom.
Which seems much more accurate to her.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, that happened. And to cut long story short, I moved the gig to there, and it was a huge success. And it was when we went on very late because there were huge traffic jams. We had about 60,000 people in the open air. Wow. Did this gig, at the end of which they were all Pink Floyd, Yeah. I think it was when I was doing Dark Side of the Moon tour.
Right.
And then I went, I can't let this opportunity go. So I said, quiet. So they all quietened down. Or they didn't quieten down, really. They were still, And I said words to this effect. This is the generation of young Israelis who must communicate with and make peace with your neighbors and support the idea of a Palestinian state, and blah, blah, blah. And they went from to
Wow.
Absolute silence. And if you could have written a balloon over their head, to see what they were going, what the fuck is he talking about? What?
We were just trying to have fun.
State, or there's never going to be. We're not going to give them a fucking square inch of anything ever.
Yeah.
Don't you understand? We're the chosen people.
Right.
They're only here to clean the ditches.
Right.
And even that is a bit of a stretch. So I mean, it was like, I remember coming up backstage, and the thing from the sort of ecstasy of the standing ovation to the complete, it happened. I went back the next year and I traveled all over the West Bank. That's the only time I've ever been. I didn't get to Gaza, but I went a bit south, Bethlehem and Butter, and I went all the way up to Jenin and all the way around the Jordan Valley and blah, and all of that. And it was a huge eye-opener. I was looked after by a woman who worked for, I think, UNRWA, but it might have been UNCHA or whatever the other one is, called Allegra Pacheco was her name. Great woman, lovely, lovely woman. I remember a seminal moment. We're driving north on a beautiful brand new sort of black tarmac road.
Right.
And I go, nice roads at least, And she goes, yeah, you're not allowed on them unless you're a Jew. And I said, well, I'm not a Jew. She said, no, if you're local, I mean.
Yeah.
You need an Israeli, you need to be Jewish to be allowed to go. The local people in the West, they can't go on this road.
Yeah, you
They
need
have
yellow,
to go
yellow
on
license
back,
plate.
Yeah, the license
yellow
plate
license
or
plate,
green.
exactly. And I went, I don't believe you. And she
Yeah.
said, well, you believe what you like. What I'm telling you is, oh, look,
So
there's another outpost. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, they build illegal outposts and then they connect them to something that's already a settlement that used to be an illegal outpost. So it's all illegal and they know it's illegal, but they're doing it anyway and they're encouraged by the government. So I got a pretty solid education.
Yeah, you saw apartheid for yourself.
And what I love about that story is the stepwise nature of your education, and that it's possible to get a reasonable call from Omar Barghouti and have him persuade you to cancel a sold out gig in the sort of European capital of the Middle East, right?
Right.
Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
At great expense to you and with great backlash, I'm sure. You made that concession. And you found a compromise. You go to the coexistence capital of Israel, Neve Shalom. You do the thing. You have
Wahat Salam.
Wahat Salam, right?
Yeah.
You have this sort of very sobering
moment,
jarring moment, and then a year later, it takes before the actual reality of what apartheid is, and your incredulity at the at the separate roads and the license plates and the
incredibly relatable, because I think that's most people who I've talked to when it comes to this stuff is this I don't believe you type of feeling, this incredulity where they just can't imagine that apartheid still exists.
I always say to them, check this out. You go through the Holland Tunnel, you are going to Philadelphia, and you arrive at the New Jersey Turnpike, and you go to drive to Philadelphia, and they go, can I see your whatever? And you go, what? Well, are you a Christian? And you go, no. And they go, well, you can't go on the road then.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What? You are kidding me. No, we're not. That's the law.
Now give me all your wooder.
Yeah, that's how they pronounce it.
So
I mean, I have
to. Sorry, I need to clear this up.
That was a Philadelphia. They say water, not water.
Water, yeah.
So they'd steal your water.
Really?
We're making fun of their accent. Shout out.
We're just trying to get little one-liners in. This podcast is very ADD.
That's brotherly love, isn't it?
That's brotherly love.
You love your brothers in Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
Just as much as they loved those people in that street when they dropped all those barrel bombs on them with those helicopters in 1970 or
yeah, well, they're not the cops of brotherly love.
Yeah. Anyway,
but
so that's the story.
Well, it's amazing to me. I think your story there is an example of someone who can humble themselves in the face of criticism about something, and then educate themselves and learn why maybe there's a BDS movement, as opposed to a lot of other artists who are out there who just the mere fact of being asked to consider joining BDS and not, performing in Israel, turns them more Zionist. It turns them into a Zionist. And, I'm sure you're asked this all the time. But both Daniel and I have talked about this for the last, year since we've been doing this podcast. The amount of Thom Yorke, refusal to engage in any meaningful way with this during a genocide has been one of the most disappointing and dark moments in terms of I don't know. I mean, I grew up listening to Radiohead. And I can't pretend that, it wasn't affecting me. And I just watched an interview in which you talk about how he was immediately hostile to you reaching out, trying to get him to consider not doing it.
Yeah, the email exchange with Thom Yorke is now available on my Substack page, if anybody wants to read it. Yeah. And it's 2 or 3 emails back. And I'll tell you why it is, because I had these email exchanges with him where he made no sense at all. He tried to be clever. Um, anyway, and he wasn't, obviously. But then he went and did a long interview with Rolling Stone,
Right.
where he called me a coward, and
Yeah.
and said that BDS was shameful, and that Brian Eno and I, that our attachment to BDS was shameful and cowardly, and how much he believed in the power of music and how it should be above politics and all that fucking nonsense.
This is like these American senators demanding that Tulsi Gabbard say publicly that Edward Snowden is a coward.
Right.
Or a traitor.
Or
a traitor is what she's demanding. Or they're demanding.
But the cowardice was also mentioned. And it's just so funny when people throw around the word cowardice when
they are acting cowardly.
Yeah. In the face of people who have actually sacrificed something with stakes.
Yes.
I know I shouldn't be sharing kind of intimate details with this, but guess what Tom Yorke's email address is?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Paranoid Android.
Yeah.
What is it?
Now get ready.
Pink Floyd fan 69.
We are
good, very good guess, but that is not correct. Are you sitting?
We are sitting.
Okay,
always
good.
sitting.
That's a terrible joke. You know?
Yeah, but that's what we do here.
We're allowed to laugh at it because this is bad jokes. Hasbara.
It's bad Hasbara.
Exactly.
And we get away with a lot here.
And unfortunately, he's a purveyor of it. You know, I think it's one thing to be completely silent during a genocide, which is shameful enough as it is, but to also just be so openly hostile towards anyone who is trying to get you to, like, please understand that that your pro-Zionist or your pro-Israel views here are completely inconsistent with literally your entire vibe.
Yeah, but what you have to understand about Thom, obviously, is that he was sitting there happily on a pedestal because there are a huge number of fans of Radiohead and who think or thought, and I'm not saying they're wrong, that the music and the writing and the Creep is cutting edge and it's blah, 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 and this and that, and that he was part of the resistance against Big Brother and the man. So being faced with this, and you know what he said to me at one point, not that we ever had a conversation, he said, imagine how difficult this is for Johnny fucking Greenwood, because he's married to an Israeli woman and lives in Tel Aviv. Well, hang on. Listen, you know, you've shouldered arms. You're committing genocide. It should be fucking hard for you.
Yeah.
Just as hard as all the other genociders.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. Either you believe in love and truth, or you believe in lies and hatred. You, along with Big Brother, who in this case are the United States and Israeli governments, believe in neither truth nor love. They believe in anything at all costs. They believe in power and wealth, and that's all they believe in. So you've made your fucking bed, lie in it.
Yeah. And I also think it's like it's a cowardly move to be like, well, think about Johnny Greenwood, who's married to an Israeli, and it's just like, well, okay, but you also are your own person, and also there are plenty of Israelis. It's like pretending that every Israeli is, you know, thinks the exact same thing. It's like there are Israelis who, you know, who speak out against genocide and apartheid.
Gideon Levy, who's
yes,
a friend of mine, to name but one. And as you named before, Miko Peled, okay, and his sister, all right,
Nurit
Peled, who's a close friend of mine.
Yeah.
And blah, blah, and blah, and blah, and blah, and blah. Yes, there are a tiny minority,
of them.
But there's a huge number of them.
It's a grand flattening of all Jewish opinion when it comes to Israel. When every Jewish person does have their own opinion about it. This idea that every Jew is a Zionist is inherently anti-Semitic view, which is pushed
Inherently,
by
yeah.
Israel all the time. This is
Yeah.
what they constantly do. You attack Israel, then you claim, well, every Jew is loves Israel, so you just hate every Jew.
Jonathan Greenblatt is an arch anti-Semite.
Yes,
Arch.
absolutely.
He's one of the worst anti-Semites that there's ever been in the whole history.
He
of
just
that.
allowed Elon Musk to sig heil during the inauguration.
He said,
was
"Look,
just-
we're all going through a hard time right now. Let's keep
Yeah.
let's keep ourselves from jumping to conclusions. Oh wait, look, a keffiyeh in an American Airlines ad.
Yeah.
Tear it down."
But I mean, in general, we're talking about an ideology that is inherently European.
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of the creation of modern Zionism is all just European stock. These
And
were
as Ilan Pape and Rashid Khalidi have talked about a lot, or I think it was more Ilan than Rashid, but it was originally a European Christian idea, even before the Jews cottoned on to it as one possible solution to our problems fitting in. And it was only a tiny minority of Jews at the time. You know all this stuff, Roger. Our listeners do too. But yeah, you're right. So
the point is Johnny Greenwood needs to nut up, and so does Thom. But I feel like they're dug in, and you see like people who are dug into being pro-Israel as like being more and more isolated in terms of like their art, their music, like everything about it is tainted for me now.
Are there any others who have? Go ahead, Roger.
Well, no. All I'm going to say is that we, the people, all over the world, certainly all over the United States, where I live most of the time, are solid behind the idea that there must be a Palestinian state, and that the Israelis have to be brought to account to settle the enormous debt now that they owe, because they are culpable in the execution of this genocide, but also that the people of the United States are complicit because they've been supporting it, even though they don't want to. But when you do the poll and find that over 50% of, I think, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but that are not in favor of going on sending 2,000-pound bombs to Israel to drop on the defenseless Palestinians. Yeah. Well, then why are you letting them be in power? And why have you now elected a new president who's absolutely in favor of it, thinks they should just do it quicker and get it over with so he can build a fucking golf course?
Yeah. It is. It's all incredibly depressing.
Well, it is incredibly depressing. You were asking me earlier, did I find any hope in anything anywhere?
Yeah.
And let me tell you another story, because this is really important. I had a friend who died, I don't know, 10 years ago, and he was Spanish origin, but he'd lived in France all his life, and he was a writer of occasionally novels, but mainly lyric writer. His name was Etienne Rodagil, and he was French, and he wrote a lot of stuff. Johnny Hallyday and Julien Brec, and so a lot of French artists. And he wrote a libretto about the French Revolution, which I made a score for back in the late 80s for the bicentennial of the Revolution of 1779. So it was 1979 I started work. Anyway, he came through New York one day, not long before he died, and we were going to go and record Saïra. My opera is called Saïra. And so we were staying in my house just off 3rd Avenue. We're walking across town early in the morning. He was an alcoholic, Etienne, and a great smoker of Benson and Hedges cigarettes. So he said, we stopped, for a cup of coffee, And I went, I know you're not having a cup of fucking coffee, but let's stop. So we found a little table. So it was very kind of a la Paris, and we sat down. I had an espresso. He had a large famous grouse, boom, and then he had another, and he lit his Benson Hedges cigarette. And we're sitting there like that. And I must have said something faintly philosophical to him, even though it was 9:30 in the morning or whatever it was. And he looked at me and he thought about it, and he went, And then he decided that he was going to speak to me. I've no idea what I asked him. And he said this. And I know he did because I wrote it down. And I put it in my back pocket. And it's not there this morning, but it's in the safe because I kept it forever. And he said, I was here. I was here. He looked me right in the eyes. He said, I felt something. Like they do. You know what they're like, the French. They're just like that. Though I say it myself, this is a good impersonation of what the fucking French like.
Yeah.
You know, they're like that.
Yeah.
He said, I was here. I felt something. And then he said it again, and he said, and perhaps I was not alone. And I nearly fell off my fucking chair on 54th Street in that little ray of sunshine. I can still feel it now. And I went, oh my God, that he's just put his finger right on something that is so important and that gives me hope.
Yeah.
Perhaps to the possibility that there was meaning and that there was a shared experience.
Exactly.
Before we continue, we need to take a quick break, so please stick
I
around.
told you.
We'll be right back. And we're back. This is Bad Hasbara, the world's most moral podcast. We are here with Roger Waters and Sweet Georgia Brown, who is a beautiful... What kind of dog's that?
She's half Chihuahua.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
Her mother was a 6-pound Chihuahua in Wharton, Texas, who made the mistake of going out in the street one day and met the local stray pit bull. So she's half Chihuahua
Oh my God.
and half Staffy.
That's actually a great combination.
It is. Yeah. She's a beautiful, beautiful dog. No barking. Do you understand?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, get off.
A Chihuahua and a pit bull could. That's wow.
Listen,
I'm just.
don't
it's
go
an image. I can't. Yeah, you went there, and now I can't get it out of my head.
I've got it out of my head, and it's going to stay out of my head.
All right, let's keep
That's
it out.
my dog.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we were talking about people, you know, in the music industry and just industry in general, entertainment industry, who either refuse to heed the I don't know, counsel of people in the BDS movement and those who actively fight against it. What has been your experience in terms of talking about this with people in the industry who maybe have changed their minds on this, or have you I don't know, brought anyone into this at all? Like, are there musicians who have reached out to you to ask you questions or anything like that?
Now, this is a path of inquiry that I'm not going to go down. There are friends I've got in the music industry who say to me, I admire you, I admire what you've done. I can't do it. You are bigger than I am. My career will be over in a heartbeat. So they do listen to the voice of the lobby, which says, if you go down this road, we're going to cut your fucking balls off. So enjoy the rest of your life lying bleeding in the gutter with no balls. And some people just go, and you do understand that they're not kidding.
No, I know.
They mean it.
Yeah.
They have no empathy, no heart,
Right.
They have nothing except hatred and
Intimidation.
lies.
Yeah.
And a feeling of supremacy. They
Right, of course.
they all feel superior to everybody who's not them. And this is what we have to fight in the future. And it's not just Jewish supremacists or Christian supremacists or Hindu supremacists or any of those religious supremacists. It's all of them. Anybody who attaches to an ancient writ, to an ancient script, and says,
Right.
"Oh, this means that I'm supremely powerful and omnipotent. I can kill people if I want and steal their olive trees."
Or a
They-
future,
and they-
or a futuristic writ, like you could have
Yeah.
the techno feudalists like Elon Musk's, who have a kind of supremacy not because of any ancient tradition, but because they are the wizards of the the
I met him.
23rd century. They're writing the Mars code right now. They claim for themselves the right
You
to
met him?
dominate resource and people.
You met Elon Musk?
I met Elon Musk. I met him at a party in St. Bart's. I'm sorry to have to admit that I once went to St. Bart's, but I did. Okay.
That's
To visit a friend who was a film producer, and he'd had a push party, and he was a bit like that, mentioning no names, no picture. And he said, I'll tell you, he was American. Roger, you have to meet this guy. He's the most amazing guy. And he introduced me to Elon Musk, and I talked to him, or rather, I listened to him for about 10 minutes. And I thought, this guy's a complete fucking moron. And he is. He's a complete idiot. And his narcissism, he oozes from every fucking awful pore of his disgusting body. And you realize that he's a complete lunatic.
Yeah.
So when I read the history of him getting involved in companies and stealing the ideas of the people who act like Tesla, he had fuck all to do with Tesla or the engineering or anything to do with it.
Yes.
It was other blokes. He just stole it from them.
Yeah.
So he's a good little creepy thief. But and you only have to watch the inauguration, which I didn't, but I saw and I'm not talking about the Nazi salute. Frankly, that's the least. But it's his bubbling, insane narcissism that's the scary thing.
Yeah.
And that he thinks we don't see through his relationship with Trump. And I mean, what they've done is incredible. That he and Bezos and Bezos' wife with tits and everything, and that idiot Zuckerberg, who's also a complete dodo.
Yeah.
Who got lucky. Let's not forget this guy got all of that by going, oh, let's grade her and say she's a 4 and she's a 6.
Right,
oh, look, there's one with tits and where's one with skinny legs?
Right.
Oh, she's a net. That's it. That's his whole fucking shtick. But somehow we fell for it, guys. And they've become very, very powerful politically.
So speaking of the feeling of having fallen for it, do you have any sympathy for anyone who has a sense of buyer's remorse? Like, we needed to get rid of these genocidal Democrats who signed off on and funded this genocide, not just expediently, but ideologically. They were 100% committed to it, Biden. And now we've got the administration we've got. Some people are trying to use that to guilt people and say, oh, this is what you wanted.
Right.
Well, that's ludicrous, obviously, because I was born in 1943. So I've been sort of watching. It's not for nothing that I wrote an album once called The Final Cut, which was a requiem for the post-war dream. Mm-hmm. We can all remember that 1948 wasn't just the Nakba. It was also the signing of the Declaration of Universal Human Rights, enshrined in law by the fledgling, except it never was, because there is no international law, because the United States would never sign up to it.
Right.
That's why it doesn't sort of exist, because they've always been John Wayne.
Yeah.
They've always been living on the frontier. Once we've killed all the Indians, everything will be all right. They live in that mentality. And now, the one thing that the genocide in the Levant has shown us, that the state of Israel has shown us, is who they are. The mask is now off. They have now completely admitted that they have no empathy, that they don't give a fig for democracy or freedom, or that all men are created equal and have certain inalienable rights, or any of it. They believe in power and wealth and nothing else. So it's like, when I have the conversation about Palestine, whether it's with other musicians, when I talk to Dionne Warwick about it, which I only did by a letter because she accused me of being a terrorist. Sometimes.
Well, that's what friends are for.
Right.
Yeah. I did say to Dion, hey, Dion, I've looked you up. You were born in 1940. So in 1948, when they signed the Declaration, you were 8. Okay. So 1948, that's a key fact. So there you are, living in your house in Chicago. I don't know which side, whether you were north, south, east, it doesn't matter. You were living with your mum and dad and your siblings in a house. There's a knock on the door. You go to the door, you open up. There's a bloke there in a uniform. And he says, go and tell your family, you've got to get out. You have to walk to Canada. What?
Yeah.
What? Dad. And your father comes down the stairs and the guy says, you've got to go and walk to Canada now. We're throwing you out. And your father goes, so you're not. We've had this house. Bang! Your father's lying dead on the floor in front of you. And then the kids come and bang! They shoot one of the kids. And your mother and the rest of the kids and you pick up whatever you can and you start walking to Canada. How would you feel, Dion? That is what happened to the Palestinians in 1948 and has been happening in fits and starts, but mainly starts ever since. How would you feel? How much empathy do you have, Dion? Can you imagine being Palestinian? I can. I imagine it every fucking day. Yeah. I imagine it with every breath that I take. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing that I do is take some deep breaths and try not to spend the rest of the day weeping. And try and think if there's anything that I can do to express my empathy for my brothers and sisters and other places where my brothers and sisters are being murdered in the world by others. It's not just Israel, but Palestine is the most obvious and concrete and heartless and vicious, disgusting genocide going on at the moment.
And directly funded by our regime.
So that's what we do. So is Etienne right? Perhaps we are not alone. Well, for them to not be alone, Dion, you have to find empathy in your heart. And it has to be for people who need your support and your empathy. And nothing else matters. Yeah. That's it. That's all. Because it is your capacity to empathize with others that paves the path to the end of the rainbow for you. Because that's where love and truth live. And that is the only thing that matters in our lives. So there. Of course, she took no fucking notice and went off to sing for a supper in Tel Aviv anyway. But I'm right.
Yeah, you are right.
And so that's so I can't get involved in I'm not making lists.
Right, of course. Yeah.
Of musicians. I can't
of course.
do it.
Yeah. I mean it does the fact that there are people who want to say something but feel, intimidated out of it is always, frustrating, but I do think that's what makes you so special, or at least that's what makes you someone who I think time will obviously vindicate, because I think more and more people, I mean, I have not seen such an outpouring of youth who are finally learning about all this is through TikTok or through whatever, and realizing how many people have been smeared as anti-Semites for standing up for Palestinian human rights, and you're one of the big targets.
Matt, that's so cool what you're saying, because you're bringing up all my young brothers and sisters in the movements in the universities all over the United States, but all over the world now, who are faced with the new fascist regimes. Yeah. It's not just Trump there, it's Keir Starmer in the UK, it's, Le Pen and Macron in France, it's blah, blah, blah. It's the new lot that Elon Musk is now pouring money into Germany to try and get the Nazi party reinstalled as the ruling party in Germany. So those young people who are now going up to university for the first time, or who are coming under enormous pressure because these motherfuckers will try and destroy them and destroy any chance that they had of getting a career in doing. And they may succeed in some cases, but not in all, because we are not alone.
Yes.
And our empathy for others is the most precious thing in any of our lives. But I take my hat off to those kids who protested, and I imagine the surprise that must have happened. Okay, in December and January and February or whenever, after October the 7th, 2023 or 2023.
Yeah.
When they suddenly discovered that they were being stamped to death with people in jackboots at the behest of the fucking government of the United States of America. It's incredible.
Yeah.
If you think about it. And yet, has there been a general uprising? Has there been a general strike? Has there been a revolution in the United States? Have they not torn this castle? No, they haven't. And that's partly because they believed America.
Yeah.
You see them at sports events,
Yeah.
and it's disgusting. The nationalism is the most dangerous thing.
Yeah.
I was really worried to see something by Gilbert Doctorow that I read this morning, where actually he was sort of kind of hailing. I think he was. I'll have to ask him. Not that I've ever spoken to him, but it needs clearing up. That there's some notion that maybe Trump's nationalism is a good thing. It's the only thing I disagree with Mearsheimer about, with his realpolitik, is the idea that the confrontation between China and the United States is inevitable, but also desirable in some way. That's the only way that we can maintain a defense against the end of law, for instance. Well, hang on. What about reforming the fucking United Nations, getting rid of the veto power in the Security Council, allowing resolutions in the General Assembly to become universal law? Why can't we do that? Oh, because one of the bullies in the yard won't allow it, the United States of America. And Mearsheimer seems to think, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love him, love Steve Walt, love the book, the Israeli love, blah, blah, blah. But to believe that ultimately confrontation, not cooperation, is the only way forward for the human race sticks in my fucking gullet.
Yeah.
Well, I guess one could make the case that just like Israeli apartheid is too far gone to be reasoned with, it's going to need to be confronted head on and dismantled from the inside, as it were. It's going to have to implode or explode because it just can't actually be reasoned with. The American empire is past that point, and multipolar reality is going to just impose itself on it. All I know is my home country, Canada, very meek, nerdy little sidekick to the playground bully. They're booing the American national anthem at goddamn hockey games these days.
Yeah.
All the Canadian hockey arenas, whenever the Star Spangled Banner is sung, is now being booed because of these tariffs. I don't know what the result's going to be, and I don't know who's right in terms of what the consequences are and what's worth it. But I love the idea of cooperation and reform, but my God, this empire does not seem very reformable.
I listened to the left-wing Canadian, don't know what his name is, but he was wearing a turban and has a long beard. And
Jagmeet Singh. Yeah.
What a measured talk he gave that I watched on the television. I know he's only got like 10% of the vote or something, but that could grow easily into, and that may be the answer, that there will, the left wing the working class might organize itself and go, no, we believe in love and truth and a decent wage. Yeah. The idea that in the United States, the minimum wage is $7.75 an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Someone should try creating a left-wing populist party here.
Yeah.
They might just have a chance.
When you say, do you say you mean in the USA?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be great? If only my friend David North, the socialist website or whatever it is, if they could get themselves together and stop talking in kind of Trotskyese, which is what they talk in a weird language about the Fourth International. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Talk to people in real language.
Right. Yeah. Stop being
I think
a nerd.
like your guy, like your Turbany guy in Canada. He was just speaking fair, and he was absolutely solid. He said, "No, we are going to represent the needs of the working people. We're not."
Well, of
gonna
course,
let
your country had, Jeremy Corbyn,
We
who
did.
who was doing that all too effectively, and
Yeah, that's
the very
why.
lobby you're talking about was deployed with
To
extreme
smear him
prejudice
as an
to-
anti-Semite.
Yes,
and
it was.
and it worked. And Asa
And
Winstanley's written a
thank
whole book
goodness,
about it.
Jeremy. Thank goodness that Asa did. Yeah, and it's a very good book too. But thank goodness Jeremy's back in Parliament and he's getting up on his hind legs occasionally and telling them what's what.
Yeah.
But yes, he should have been the Prime Minister of England in 2019, and he was
That's right.
brought down by the ruling class and the Israeli lobby, who worked together to destroy him.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
we're fighting back.
yeah, and I do see, the last 16 months as making it. I mean, obviously you've seen the Israel lobby still doing what it does in terms of these, mass intimidation campaigns and mass smear campaigns. But more and more you see people, especially young people, especially in independent media, people aren't buying into this automatic smear of someone. Oh, if the ruling class or the institutional Jewish community says this person is an anti-Semite, I think more and more people pause and they go like, okay, but are they an anti-Semite or do they wear a keffiyeh? Now people are seeing the ADL, sidling up to Elon Musk, who is trying to get the Nazis back and doing Sig Heils and stuff. And they're seeing that they don't care about that stuff. They only care, if someone is going to be pro-Palestine. So my hope would be that in the future, they couldn't do to, Jeremy Corbyn what they, did to him back in 2019. This is just me trying to be optimistic.
Well, good for you, brother. I'm happy to see you. No, I'm serious.
Okay.
I'm so serious. Hope.
Yeah.
Hope. We need hope. That my story about Etienne Roger. I first told that story to a meeting of about 2,000 Canadians in Vancouver in 2017, I think. They all came into a church and they listened to me in conversation with a lovely lady from Independent Jewish Voices and a Muslim lady. And I can't remember, I'm sad, ashamed to say I don't remember either of their names. But at the end, they together asked me, do you see hope? And I told them that story. We are not alone. And it's that the sense of community in that church in Vancouver that night, and I felt it in other places all over the world, is so powerful.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
and what this podcast is not is not anyone's go-to place for the latest, deepest insight or analysis or even seriousness, but what people get from it is a sense of not being alone, and that seems to be quite medicinal. That that feeling of, am I the only one seeing this? No, you're not. And you're not crazy.
And I think
good.
Yeah. I think we're more not alone than ever. And so it's the thing that keeps me going and fills me with optimism. And also people like you, Roger, do fill me with optimism, because I think most people would lie in the gutter with their balls cut off, as you described. That is I think most people in the entertainment industry in general are happy to lie in a gutter with their balls cut off if it means they get to keep working. And you've been able to work despite all of the intimidation and the threats and the smearing. And I think that is no one wants to be a political martyr, for a cause, because the people are careerists. Most people are just like, they only care about what they got. They only care about their own. And you see that so much. It's rampant. It's almost the culture of entertainers, or musicians or comedians and whatnot. and for you to break that mold, especially the fact that your music is good, like that's the best part. Is you know, I don't give a shit about, you know, throwing away my Radiohead records because I can listen to Pink Floyd and Roger Waters records. So it all
See,
works
Thom?
out. Yeah. Yeah, you fucked up. Yeah, you fucked up, Thom. You're out. Deleting
Yeah.
you off of all the, you know, if I had Spotify, I'd delete you off of Spotify.
Yeah.
Mother,
Exactly.
do you think we persuaded Thom?
I doubt. I kind of doubt that.
Yeah,
Maybe that's a good petty note to end on.
I think it is too.
Not Tom Petty. Sorry.
Well done. Oh, he's a man after our own heart.
Wow. Yes. If we can get our guests to pun it up, then we feel like we've succeeded. Roger
Well,
Waters,
good.
thank you so much for coming on
Not at all.
this podcast.
It's been a
and talking to us.
pleasure. I will definitely come back.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
we'd love to have
amazing.
you.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
you.
And
Fuck
cheers.
them all.
Yeah, fuck them all.
Fuck them all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cheers to everyone out
Cheers,
there.
Daniel.
Cheers.
Cheers to
All
you,
right.
Roger.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Patreon.com/badasbar. Email us, badasbar@gmail.com. And until next time, from the river to the sea.
If you don't have your Palestine will be free, you can't have any Jewish security. How can you have any Jewish security if you won't eat your Palestine will be free? I should have done it in a Scottish accent. If you don't eat your... It was convoluted.
It was great.
It was convoluted, yeah.
Jumping jacks was us. Push-ups was us. Krav Maga us. All karate us. Taking Molly us.